Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And sometimes we change our focus to other parts of the world. But before we jump into that, I'd like to welcome back to the show our wonderful co-host down in California. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing really good. And yes, we're changing our focus a little, but I feel like Aulani, spoiler, that's today's topic. Aulani is very closely, it's like a sister to Disney Cruise Line because you have the ocean and you have, a tropical resort feel. And that's a big part of the DCL experience. So I'm super excited about today's topic.
And why are you so excited about it?
Because I don't even know what's today. So we're recording this on July 10th. So this is like 3 weeks, a little more, maybe like 3.5 weeks till I am in Hawaii myself for the first time. I've never been. And as a native Angelino, that's rare. I feel like Los Angeles, it's just a natural, let's go to Hawaii because that's pretty close to us, at least closer to us than it is for anyone on the East Coast.
So I'm super excited to talk about this topic today for you. And so you and Seth can plan for your time in Hawaii. And I'm really excited to bring back to the show all the way down in Louisiana. How are you doing today, Christy?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. In my brain, I still have the idea of you guys driving back from Mardi Gras with like all the gifts and stuff that you guys picked up off the streets in your car.
Yep. 3-foot teddy bear. Still have it. Yes.
I remember that episode.
Still have it.
Well, it's been a while, but you have been just over in Hawaii recently. And I was really excited that you reached out to us and was willing to do this show and talk about your experiences on Oahu and the beautiful resort of Aulani. I guess before we jump into it, remind everybody kind of your Disney background and why you decided to go to Aulani this time.
So we are a big Disney World family. We mostly go there. We've been to Disneyland a few times, and we kind of jumped into the cruise line in 2019. So we had booked a placeholder. We were supposed to go this year in January, but of course that didn't work out. And so I think when we decided to move the cruise, Hawaii was just starting to reopen. Aulani was just starting to reopen. So it was kind of a good time to jump on booking flights. And we had saved up for DVC, and we're also Wyndham owners. So we had Wyndham points saved up. So it seemed like all the, everything aligned to where we could go for a long time because we are traveling with 2 kids. So we figured if we were making the long flight over, we should spend a lot of time. So that was kind of what pushed us towards Aulani, was just the cruise line kind of being still up in the air and not really knowing when that was going to go.
Yeah, you had to get that sister experience, the close to DCL experience with Aulani. That's awesome.
It was definitely something we always wanted to do, but we just weren't sure when we ever would be able to. So it just seemed like this was the perfect time. Everything was kind of, lining up perfectly for us to be able to make it happen now.
And how old are your kids?
My son is 10 and my daughter's 5.
Okay, so they're right in the Disney magic zone.
Yes, they are. We had gone to Disney World last year, right before everything shut down, and it was the perfect age for my 5-year-old. She had the best time. So it was kind of a bummer that we couldn't get back right away. We couldn't get back on the cruise right away and have that more normal Disney experience when she's right at that perfect age. But this was pretty close. It was, we still had a great time.
So I think going to Aulani has been the perfect pivot point for a lot of people with those extra DVC points. And then the fact that Hawaii is actually open and, you can get over there and do that. Was it hard booking, getting your hotel room or getting your space in Aulani?
No, not at all. We kind of, like I said, jumped in right when they had first reopened. So we had no issues. I've seen people, scrambling, trying to find rooms and trying to find car rentals and stuff when they're trying to book a last minute trip. But I think we got in on it right when everybody was still maybe a little hesitant about traveling. And, so we were able to get those things booked before everything kind of started getting a little bit more booked up and popular. And people were kind of starting to realize that that was a good option for people. If you can't travel international and you can't go on a cruise, it does seem to kind of naturally push you towards Hawaii, which feels more exotic and, like you're leaving the country, even though you're really still in the US. So.
Right. So did you book a car rental for all 12 days of your trip, or how did that work? Okay.
We did. We rented it for the whole time because we just had so many things that we were planning to do. Once we got to Aulani, we really only left for one day. So we probably could have done without a car for that part of our trip. But overall, it was nice to have just to run to the store or, whatever else we needed to do. It was nice to have that convenience.
Right. And it's free to park at Aulani if you're a DVC member. So,
Correct.
At least you're not paying that huge fee every night to leave the car parked there. Steve gave me or told me to buy this book about Oahu and like things to do in Oahu. And one of the funniest things in the book is it says rental cars in Oahu are cheaper than almost anywhere else in the country. And I was like, that's a pre-pandemic statement if I've ever heard one.
Definitely not right now. That was probably one of our biggest worries after COVID testing, and getting all that uploaded to make sure that we could get there. Just seeing people saying that there was such a big car shortage and the prices, as people started booking, the prices were going sky high. And definitely pre-pandemic statement. Yeah, that you cannot say that right now.
Right. Yeah. We ended up booking our trip through Christy, and she knows travel agent tricks. So she was like, I could save you about $400 on your rental car if you book it this way. However, the way that we did it is we will pick up the rental car at the terminal, but then we'll drop off at Aulani because we don't plan to leave Aulani. And then we'll just take a Uber or something back to the airport. But I think we would have liked to have the car every night, but it's like we could save quite a bit of money just by only renting a car, Can you give us sort of an overview of what your trip entailed? So when you got there, I know you split your trip between Wyndham, where you own points, and Aulani, but sort of what was sort of your overview or your vision for the trip?
So our game plan was we had enough points to get a 1-bedroom at each location for 6 nights. So that's what we decided to do. We went for 12 nights total. So we did 6 nights at Wyndham, 6 nights at Aulani. And I really tried to make sure that all of the activities we wanted to do, I tried to plan as much as I could for those first 6 days when we were in Waikiki, just because I knew the resort area was nice, but it wasn't like Aulani where we'd want to stay and hang out at the pool and the beach and those kinds of things. So we figured we could get more of our stuff done those first 6 days in Waikiki. And then by the time we got to Aulani, we could have plenty of time to just relax and enjoy the amenities there. Of course, everything wasn't open, but I mean, even just after doing all of that stuff, being able to relax for a few days was really nice. It was almost like 2 vacations. So like I said, there was really only one thing I couldn't fit in. So we did end up leaving Aulani for pretty much an entire day. We were gone. But otherwise, we had about a good solid 4 days that we were able to just hang around at the pool, after our check-in day and then one day being away. We had about a good 4 days to just spend there.
Relax. That sounds nice. Okay.
So being in Waikiki, what was your plan there, Christy, as far as some of the things that you wanted to do? And what did you think of Waikiki overall?
So Waikiki, I mean, it's very busy. It's very congested. There's a lot of traffic. So you do have to plan ahead for that when you're trying to go places like the North Shore or even just across the other side of the island where the Polynesian Cultural Center is. There was a few things we definitely wanted to do. We wanted to do the Cultural Center again. My son, the only thing he asked to do was a surf lesson. So we made sure we got one of those scheduled. We did Kualoa Ranch was another thing we had done back when we were there in 2009. We had done a tour of lost locations for the TV show. And so this time we did a Jurassic adventure tour. So it was all Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. So perfect for the kids and for us because we're kind of Jurassic Park fans from back in the day too. And we went to the Dole Pineapple Plantation, to Pearl Harbor, and there's a swap meet that they do a few days a week. We did that, and we did 2 hikes, Diamond Head and the Makapu Lighthouse Trail.
Last night, I just dropped the money for that tour that you're describing. It's like a 2.5-hour tour that goes to both valleys on the ranch, and you see all the film sites. That's my understanding, but I would love to hear a firsthand account. I think I talked about it probably some somehow on every single episode, but I'm a Jurassic Park super fan. I have like Jurassic Park stuff in my house. That's how much I am a fan of the movies. Dinosaurs in general. So anytime we go on a vacation, if there's like a natural history museum or a dinosaur thing, or if we're doing a road trip and we see one of those tourist traps where it's like, come see our dinosaurs, and they're just like, plaster dinosaurs in the middle of a garden, we do that every time. So we had to book that for this trip, and I'm excited to hear if you recommend it or if you thought it was fun and worth the money, because it's not a very cheap tour. It's pretty expensive for a 2.5 hour thing.
I think it's probably one of their most expensive like tours. I don't know, it may not be more expensive than like zip lining or some other kind of like physical activity, but it is definitely more on the expensive side. But we absolutely thought it was worth it. We are big, like I said, big Jurassic Park fans, but I think it would even be fun if you just kind of have seen the movies and kind of enjoyed them. So if you really love it, I think you're really going to love this tour, because they take you, like you said, to both sides. So you see the famous like valley from the original Jurassic Park. And then there's a bunch, they filmed most of Jurassic World on location there in Oahu in Koloa Ranch. So you see a lot of locations from there, the Indominus Rex enclosure, which you can actually go inside. They have some of the cages from Fallen Kingdom, and you can go inside of them. You can walk around. It's more like hands-on. You don't have to just kind of stand behind it and look at everything. And the guide that we had was really wonderful. He'll take your pictures for everything, and he tells everybody in the group, we can stay at this location as long as you guys want. Like, it's your tour. If you, like want to spend the whole time here, we can do that. Of course, nobody wanted to, because we wanted to go to all the sites, but you don't feel like you're rushed through it. So even though it was 2.5 hours and it took just that long, I never felt like we were rushed from one location to the other. We got to stop and see a bunker where they film like some outside shots from Jurassic World. They take some really fun pictures. So I won't spoil it, but they take some really fun pictures. When you go to the area where the kids like hide under the log in Jurassic Park from the Gallimimus, that was probably the highlight for all of us. We all had a good time for that part. And the valley is just gorgeous. So, I mean, in the midst of seeing all this cool Jurassic Park stuff, you're seeing these beautiful valleys and mountains that you see in so many movies. I mean, I didn't realize it until after we had been there once. Now, when I see it in movies, I'm like, oh, I know exactly where that is. So it's very iconic.
That sounds amazing.
Perfect for a Jurassic Park fan.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm super excited because that's for sure booked. Also, I don't know if you've experienced this, but they are already sold out for a lot of the days that we were in Oahu. So when we booked it yesterday, we had to book on a specific day because it was all they had available. So we were like, oh, I guess we should have been more on top of this particular thing, knowing that we wanted it. So yeah. And for folks, just so you have context, they offer maybe like 10 different types of activities or tours there. They have, I think, horseback tours, motorized mountain bikes. They have a zip line. I'm probably missing some things, Christy. Maybe you knew some other stuff.
Yeah, there was some other like just movie sites tours where they take you to lots of other places that are maybe not so heavily Jurassic Park, like Kong Skull Island, Jumanji, Godzilla, stuff like that. A lot of people like the ATV or the Raptor tours. I think that's probably what you had mentioned. A lot of people recommend those. But I think there was maybe just some other like ranch tours. I mean, like you see like some farm movie locations.
Yeah.
Right. But it's mostly just like exploring the ranch, because the ranch is enormous. So there's a lot.
And it's technically a working farm still, right? They still produce things
ranch,
there.
So
well, it sounds amazing. It looks beautiful. And you're absolutely right that Hollywood loves this location because it's near Oahu, near Honolulu rather. So there's a lot of resources in Oahu. But it also looks and can be made to look like the middle of nowhere or like a beautiful tropical island. So it makes a lot of sense that they film in that location. Okay, so you mentioned the Jurassic tour. You also mentioned these hikes, and your trip sounds like our trip. Like, these are the things that we're planning to do as well. So this is kind of funny. You mentioned the hikes. So there are literally dozens of iconic hikes on Oahu. What made you settle on these two?
So Diamond Head we chose because we had done before when it was just me and my husband, and I figured it would be a good one for the kids. It's not super strenuous. It is a little uneven and rocky when you're walking up, but it's not one of the more difficult ones. And it also doesn't take a really long time, because with two kids, I didn't want to do anything that was going to take up our whole day or that they were going to get, pooped out halfway through. So that one seemed, manageable. which they actually surprised me. They did amazing. They never complained. They were actually waiting on me because I was the slowest and taking the longest to get up. But they did great. And then similarly with the Lighthouse Trail, it's paved. We knew that one would be a little bit easier for the four of us to handle together. So it's paved the whole way up. And that was one we had not done before. So we just kind of watched YouTube videos and watched, like family friendly hikes that we could manage together. And that was the only two that we did, the four of us. My husband did the Cocoa Crater Trail, which is, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like an old railroad that goes basically like straight up the mountain. Yeah. So he did that one on his own. And he even told us, he said, I'm glad we didn't try to do this together because the kids could not have handled that. So he did that one on his own because it looked really cool and he really wanted to accomplish that. But I think the two that we chose were really good. Oh, the other one we did, which I forgot to mention, was when we were on the North Shore, we went to Waimea Valley. They have it's a kind of a slow incline hike through a botanical garden up to a waterfall, which was also really easy for the four of us to do together.
Okay. And I'm trying to think, is Waimea Valley where they have that Buddhist temple?
No, that one's kind of down in the corner, over from Waikiki, to the west, I guess that would.
It's over by Kaneohe, so it's just north of Kaneohe. So if you go basically due east of Waikiki, you're gonna run into that. And then so Waimea Valley is up on the North Shore, and you have to pay to do that hike. The other two are free, but you do have to pay to get into there, right?
Correct. So Waimea Valley was probably the most expensive because it's not just a hike. I guess it's the botanical garden. So it was $20 for adults and $12 for kids. And right now, I mean, this may not hold up for much longer, but they were doing free entry for healthcare providers and first responders. So I actually just had to bring my badge from work. So I got in for free. And there was a small charge for Diamond Head. I think it was $5 a person.
Oh, that's right, because it's a national park. Yeah.
Right, so, but it's not too much. That was easy, and we just bought the tickets when we got there. So the Waimea Valley was a little bit more expensive. I don't know if we would have done it if I wouldn't have been able to get in free, because that is kind of expensive just for a couple of hours for a family of four. But waterfall was really nice. It was an easy kind of incline up. There's lots to look at, on the way, and you can get in the waterfall and swim. They have life jackets and changing rooms. And so you can actually swim in there, which was pretty cool.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that they did that. The guidebook that I've been reading scares you to get into freshwater streams because they're bacteria lives in this freshwater stream and you can die if you swim in it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's not the Hawaii I thought it was. I doubt that happens all that often, but the fact that it happens at all, they're probably we want to make sure people are aware of this.
Right. Yeah. But no, that one was safe to swim in for whatever reason. I don't know if it's from the rushing water from the
probably. And moving water is less likely to have bacteria.
Yeah.
I think they're talking more like Lures Canal down in Waikiki. You don't ever want to swim in that. And then there's some places up on the North Shore where the water's a little bit more stagnant. But I think up in Waimea Valley, you're totally safe.
Cool. It sounds beautiful, and definitely you made the most of some touristy things like the Dole Pineapple Plantation and right. Maybe the more popular hikes, but also you got a real sense of the island, it sounds like, which is really cool. And in a rental car, you probably got to see a lot of stuff that maybe if you didn't have a rental car, you wouldn't have gotten to see.
The picture that I'm using as my background actually was from just kind of the drive up to the Lighthouse Trail. They just have places to kind of stop and park and take pictures. And it's just this gorgeous blue water. And it's just absolutely, beautiful. It's just nice to kind of drive around and see what you kind of happen upon too.
Well, before we head over to Aulani, I guess I got a couple other things. I guess they offer surf lessons through Aulani, so you can definitely do that through their through their excursion desk. But you're going to find it a lot cheaper on Waikiki. You can go to. They've got the Beach Boys down there, several different spots, and it's just a great place to learn. How did your son like that?
He loved it. So him and my husband, they both kind of ranked that as the top thing that we did for the whole trip. They really enjoyed it. My daughter and I didn't do it. We sat out, but he had a hard time, I guess, getting up on the board. But the instructors were really good about, they would just kind of tow him back out and let him ride the waves on his stomach, kind of let him do whatever he wanted to do. And he had an absolute blast. He absolutely loved it.
They use longboards out there because that's what the waves are best for. And it's kind of like, it's like the best waves. It's like training wheels for surfing. So I could totally understand that, being smaller, trying to get those boards going fast enough to go. So I'm glad he had an amazing time. And before we touch on Aulani, being a Club Wyndham member, I was looking at the pictures, with the one bedroom. We don't get to talk to people too much about, different timeshares. How would you and since you're a member of DVC and Club Wyndham, how would you kind of compare the two? And did you like the accommodations you had?
The accommodations were okay, but definitely not as luxe as Aulani and even maybe some other Wyndham resorts. I kind of feel like that's maybe one of the big differences is with DVC resorts, you kind of know what you're going to get. And all of them are, very well appointed and very well themed. And Wyndham, it can vary a lot more depending on what city you're in. Like we've stayed at Bonnet Creek over in Orlando when we've done Disney trips. And those properties, that property I would say is really nice. The units are really nice and spacious. And some of them are a little bit older. And I think that this one was maybe one of the ones that was a little bit on the older side. Most of our food, we bought, groceries, and we planned to do a lot of cooking. The kitchen was incredibly small in the Wyndham, so we didn't have much counter space to work with. So that made it tough. But we also kind of didn't plan on being in the room a whole lot there. So it worked perfectly for what we needed so that we could kind of be on the go every day. The rooms were a little bit smaller, but we had everything we needed. It was comfortable. It was nice having the master bedroom, and the kids slept on the sofa bed. So everybody kind of had their space. So it's better than staying in a hotel room for sure, but definitely a big difference from that to when we moved over to Aulani.
One other just quick question. Is it easy to book through Club Wyndham as far as, like DVC? Sometimes it could be really tough to get certain resorts at certain times. Do you find it?
I haven't found it to be an issue, but we're typically planning kind of further out. But I feel like we've always been able to find something, even if we do a last minute trip, like to Orlando, like we can find one of the resorts that has availability. It might not be our first choice, but that's one of the other good things, I guess, is that in some places that are more popular, they have several different resorts to choose from. Like Washington, D.C. has several in that area. So, even if you can't find something at one, you could probably find something at another one. So we haven't had any trouble booking anything.
In terms of like value for the point, I guess it's really subjective because, or rather objective, because you're sort of in a space where if you love Disney and you love that specific spark or brand, the room has more value. But would you consider the bigger contract? Like where do you have a lot more Wyndham points than Disney points, or?
I think my husband is the timeshare person, but I think we probably have more with DVC. Would you say that that's correct? More points with DVC or Wyndham? He said it's about equal.
Okay. But I imagine with Wyndham that it feels like less pressure to specifically go to a Disney site for a vacation. Even though DVC, I know you can pay $100 or $200 and stay at other hotels around the world. Mm-hmm. But you probably would spend your DVC points at a DVC property. Whereas Absolutely. With Wyndham, I could imagine you being like, yeah, we're going to go to whatever city and we'll use the points however we want.
And that's kind of how we vacationed in the past. We only recently got into DVC, but kind of before, just with Wyndham, it would just be like, okay, let's pull up the Wyndham map and kind of see where we can go. And we'd kind of have an idea, but sometimes that kind of led us to where we were going to go if we just wanted to go on a vacation, but we weren't really sure where we wanted to go. So we've done that quite a few times. But then when we decided to kind of jump into DVC, which we did via resale, it was just like we like to go to Disney and we want to be able to stay at those properties. And then we can have the Wyndham to kind of go other places, to visit other parts of the U.S.
Sounds like the best of both worlds, in all honesty. I think it's kind of cool.
It is, yeah.
Well, any other questions about Waikiki or time spent down there, Chris, before we head over to the western part of Oahu?
I got to ask because I know it's a tourist trap, but I really love Dole and Pineapple Whip. So I feel like we're going to go to that plantation. Also, it stresses me out to go to places that are called plantations, but
it doesn't really seem like a plantation. I do know what you mean. It's really more like a big gift. You're going in a big gift shop. It's kind of what you're in. And they do have activities. There's a train, there's a garden tour, and I think a maze. And we got there what I thought was early, and it was packed. Like it has gotten, I don't remember it being like that, but even being there early in the morning, there was like an hour and a half wait for the train. We didn't do any of the activities. We just kind of went. There's a few areas you can walk around outside that are just, included, like some of the little garden areas. So we did that. And then the line for the Dole Whip was kind of insane. They have 3 counters, and it looked like it was one long line going all the way down, and then you would get up to the front and split to one of the 3 counters, but that was not the case. So when you go there, if they have a long line, check the counters on the side because there might not be a line. That's what we did. So we got in and out a lot quicker.
Okay, that's a hot tip. You heard it here first.
Well, it happened because a lady was like, she was going across through the line and she was like, "Oh, excuse me." And she had her Dole Whip, and my 5-year-old was like, "Is that a Dole Whip?" She says, "Yes. And if that's all you want, go in that line over there because it's a lot shorter." So it was one of the only times I've been glad my 5-year-old just kind of blurts things out. Sometimes it can be
strangers.
touch and go. Yes, but it helped in that case. So because it's one person, like she works the register, she takes your order,
and if you want an ice cream, fills it.
Yes, she's turning around, like making the Dole Whip. And if you order food, you just kind of go to the side and wait for them to cook your food. But most people are there getting some kind of, ice cream, something. So, I mean, it's one person at each counter doing all of that.
We, I think, are spoiled by Disney's like insistence on efficiency because
yes.
There is, the original little Dole Whip tiki booth outside of the tiki room in Anaheim. That does not fit that many people back there, but Disney has found a way to put the exact number of positions needed to get you in and out as quickly as possible. So, well, okay, I just needed to know that for myself because I think we were thinking of going, but also it's like, yeah, I've heard the train ride is like just okay. And there's like a pineapple maze in there. Or it's not made out of pineapple. It's like shaped, the pathways are shaped like pineapple, I think, if you look at it from above. So there's stuff to do, but I'm also like, in this touristy time when there's so many people going to Oahu right now, would we actually enjoy that? Or would it just be like standing outside in humidity at basically a giant gift shop?
Yeah, I mean, we went because it was something we remembered doing from when we went before. And I would always tell my daughter about how we saw pink pineapples. So the whole time, so my son wanted to do a surf lesson. My daughter wanted to see pink pineapples. That was all she talked about leading up to the trip. So it worked out well that kind of unknowingly we like rope dropped it on our first day because you wake up early, those first few days. Well, we did with such a big time difference. It's like we didn't really have anything planned on our first day. So we said, well, we're up. Let's just go. It opens at 9:30. That's not, extremely early. I'm glad we did it that way because I think if we had tried to go maybe like in the afternoon, it seemed like we passed by there one afternoon on the way back from the North Shore, and there was a lot of tour buses and there was people lined up waiting just to get inside the building. So it was insanity by the afternoon. So definitely if it's something you want to take the time out to do, I would go early, but also you're not really missing anything if you don't make it there.
Okay. That's a good way to think about it, I think.
Yeah. I think Dole Plantation is kind of an easy stop in on your trip up to the North Shore. As you go by it, check it out. If it doesn't look too busy, that's a good way. Just, it's a quick pop in and get your Dole Whip and then continue on with your day.
Yeah, that sounds like a good tip. And then my last question would be general Hawaii Waikiki is, did you find that there was a difference between doing activities on weekdays versus weekend days? Like, was it less crowded a little bit? Or is it just so touristy right now that it doesn't really matter what you do on a weekday versus a weekend day?
We didn't go to the Dole. We went on a weekday and it was incredibly busy. So I don't know. I mean, we didn't go on a weekend. I mean, I guess it could have probably been worse, but it was also pretty bad on a weekday. So, it would only be worse, I would think, maybe on a weekend if there was a difference. But I didn't really notice a difference. The beaches were always pretty crowded, because we were at the beach a few times. I mean, you could always find a spot, but there was definitely a lot of people. And you just kind of had to be ready to wait if you didn't get there like first thing. For example, when we went to Diamond Head, we wanted to park like in the parking lot, which is really small. And we got there at about 8:30 and it was full. So we had to kind of wait. They let us wait in a little line off to the side. And we had to wait about 15 minutes for the cars in front of us to each get a spot until we got a spot. So there's definitely a lot of foot traffic on the island right now. So you kind of just had to be ready to wait for almost everything you did, unless it was like a booked scheduled tour. It was just, there was definitely a lot of people.
But you did find eventually parking in each place that you went, and
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you just had to wait for it, but yeah, we definitely were able to do everything we wanted to do. It was never like waiting hours for anything. We couldn't have done that with our kids. They wouldn't have tolerated it. So yeah, everything was accomplishable, I guess, if I'm
Cool.
making up a word.
Well, then the real star of the vacation would be Aulani. So
Sure.
you did all the touristy things, you did the sort of Waikiki and Oahu experience, but you wanted to mostly just stay at Aulani, which you saved for the back half of the trip. So tell us about arriving at Aulani and what was that day like?
And before you do that, I think that, being a DCL, show, I think one of the things that people really get excited about is when they pull up to the port in Port Canaveral and they see the Dream or the Fantasy or whatever port it is, and you see the magic and the wonder kind of off there in the distance. And I think Aulani has that same magic. What was that like, Christy? And to Chris's question there, as you arrived.
I think I was probably the most excited about it. I kept pointing it out to the kids and they were like, oh, that's nice. But I got that feeling like, oh my gosh, you can see it off in the distance. And, you're kind of like getting to that part of your trip that you've really maybe been looking forward to. So I think a lot of people probably do the same thing, like even if it's not for as long of a time, but maybe splitting their trip so that when they get to Aulani, they can just kind of enjoy the resort and not worry about, being on the go every day. So definitely you do get that feeling kind of driving up. And when you walk into that lobby, which is all, open air, and you just feel like you're in a totally different place. Like I felt like we had just left just like New Orleans, like the big city, and we made it to this gorgeous little tropical hideaway area. And it was wonderful. The check-in process went very smooth. I think we got there at about lunchtime and our room was ready kind of early, maybe like 1:30. So we went straight to the pool and spent the afternoon there. And the kids, just couldn't get enough of, the water slides and the lazy river. And they loved the Menehune Bridge play area. So we just jumped right in to just hang by the pool, kind of relax for a few days type of vacation.
The hot tip that I've learned, so we're only staying in Aulani for 2 nights because we're not DVC members and it is expensive. Aulani costs, for 2 nights at Aulani, it's costing more, like 2.5 times, almost 3 times as much as 5 nights in a hotel in Waikiki. So it's very expensive right now to go to Aulani without DVC.
Yeah.
But the hot tip that we learned was that you could show up at like 8 a.m, check into your room, which won't be ready, but then they'll give you access to all the amenities, and there's locker rooms and showers and changing rooms. So you can just like basically have a resort day where you don't have your room yet, but at least you're making the most of this really expensive trip that you're going on. So that's a hot tip that we learned. And it sounds like maybe you got there before your room was probably ready too, right?
Yeah. So we kind of had to like check out by 10 from our first resort, but we knew check-in was a little bit later at Aulani, but we still went over and did the actual, at the front desk part, because you do have to show your safe travels information and all that when you check in. So we knew we had to go to the desk, but then, they told us, just make yourselves, at home everywhere else on the property. And so we looked through the gift shop, and then they do have like large bathrooms right next to the pool area. So we had our bathing suits kind of in an extra little backpack, and we left our stuff with Bell Services and went and changed right there, and just got right to the fun part of enjoying it.
That sounds like a Disney cruise line tip, to have your bathing suit and other stuff in an extra little backpack so that you can still do fun stuff while you're waiting for your room.
Yes, for sure. We packed all of our stuff strategically, so we'd have everything in the suitcases except our, swimsuit, sunscreen, that kind of stuff. So we were ready to go.
So let's turn to your room. You guys had a one bedroom this time. It comes with a kitchen, and the thing that I really appreciate is you also have a washer and dryer in there.
Oh yeah.
Doing all those pool days and everything like that. What was your thoughts of the room?
The room was gorgeous. We haven't had too many DVC stays to compare it to yet, just because, like I said, we're kind of newer to the DVC front, but it was absolutely beautiful. The rooms were really spacious. The living room was really large. I felt like we had plenty of space for the four of us for those 6 nights. The bathroom was huge. That was one major difference. Also, besides just the kitchen, between the Wyndham and Aulani was the bathroom was enormous. At Wyndham, everything was kind of all crammed in. So we had rooms for, bathing suits to hang and swim shoes and all those items that just kind of stack up and towels and all that. So that was nice. And the kitchen was great. Plenty of room to cook because we made breakfast a lot. We cooked dinner a few times and we'd go back to the room just like for lunch, hit the pool in the morning, go back in the room for lunch and then go back for the afternoon. So it was great. We loved the room. We had an ocean view. So we had, gorgeous views out of our two balcony windows. It was really nice.
Well, I'm glad my kids are not going to listen to this because we always go with the cheap rooms and we get the view of the air conditioners. So that's one of the things. Were you glad you got the ocean view room? A lot of people ask that.
I was glad we got it, but I think probably if we went back, it maybe wouldn't be a necessity to do again necessarily. My husband and I are not coffee drinkers, so it's not like we were sitting out on the balcony in the morning drinking coffee where you'd maybe enjoy it a little bit more. It was nice to have. It made for some nice pictures, because we would dress up my daughter to go to the character breakfast, or we did the luau there. So it was a nice photo op to have that really nice background. But definitely fun to do once, but not a necessity for sure.
What I'm a little confused about is if you do a long trip at Aulani, and I would consider 6 days a longer trip, there's only like 3 restaurants, right? So
yeah.
Are you essentially just eating at the same places every night? Or I know across the street, they have like a Roy's and some other places that you can go to, but what is the food situation like at Aulani? And then my tag question is, did you do the luau?
The food, they have the Ulu Cafe and Off the Hook, I think was open, but Ama Ama was not open. And I think Makahiki is open for dinner. We really only did the breakfast there. We did Ulu Cafe a couple of times. We got a pizza from there one night to bring back up to the room, but mostly we cooked. And there was some places you could go across the street. So they have Monkey Pod, they had Pizza Corner, like you said, Roy's. They had a few places within driving distance, but if you wanted to go to Aulani and just eat on site, it would be very expensive. So you do have to kind of keep that in mind because it's definitely not cheap to eat at their restaurants for the whole time that you're there. So we planned ahead to cook in our room, have breakfast in our room most mornings to kind of save a little bit of money that way.
And you had your groceries delivered or you bought them?
We went shopping. Yeah, we went to Target, which was much better than Walmart. I will say we were frustrated at Walmart. We went to the one in Waikiki and it was a nightmare. They were out of almost everything. So we ended up going to Target to get most stuff, which was much, much easier to navigate.
Sounds just like Burbank.
Yeah.
I love the Target.
But we did do the luau, it was really nice. It was really fun. It was all evening and the food was good. The entertainment was great. And what I liked about it was that they do have a big stage, but then they also have smaller ones kind of set up through the outdoor luau area. So you always kind of have one of the performers right in front of you. So you could see kind of what was going on.
That's really cool. Did you or the kids try the poi?
I had tried it before and I was not a fan, so I did not try it this time. And my kids, there's no way I was getting them to eat that. So they did not.
And during COVID, it's not a buffet?
It is not a buffet. They brought everything out in little bento boxes. So we got an appetizer tray first, and then we got our entrees, and then they brought out a trio of desserts. And the kids was kind of the same. They got a little fruit cup for an appetizer, then they got their meal, and then they got a special little Moana dessert.
Love Moana.
Yeah.
Did the kids enjoy the luau? Because it's a really cool story, and our kids loved it. So your kids are a little bit younger.
They did enjoy it. I felt like they paid more attention to this one than the one at the Polynesian Cultural Center. I felt like it held their attention a little bit more. Yeah, we really enjoyed it. The dancing was really nice, and the story was really good. And then, of course, you get the little surprise visitors. So that was fun.
The one at the Polynesian Cultural Center is a big indoor theater called Ha, the show. Ha. The only thing I've seen when I looked at pictures of it is that it seems like they have a billion fire dancers during whatever that fire scene is.
Yeah.
Would you say that you felt like the Aulani luau overall was better, the show at least?
So at the Polynesian Cultural Center, it's more like you do the luau first, and that's like the meal, and they have a little bit of dancing. And then the Ha show is like just a separate kind of like nighttime presentation show. So I would almost kind of call those a little bit different. So just looking at the luau, the Aulani one was definitely better because I felt like the one at the Polynesian Cultural Center was a little bit, it didn't hold my kids' attention at all. They were not paying attention to what was going on stage. They were like, when are we going to be done? When are we going to the next thing? Because it's all just kind of like set on a stage, and you are, if the further back you're seated, the less you find yourself paying attention because it's kind of just off in the distance happening around you. Whereas the Aulani Luau, like I said, they have performers coming kind of down the pathway. So you always kind of have something close to you to look at and watch. So I think the luau experience was better at Aulani. The nighttime show at Polynesian Cultural Center, though, that it's incredible. Like we did the whole day package with the villages, the luau, and the nighttime show, and I would have paid that price just for the nighttime show by itself. It was really good.
Okay. Well, everyone should also know that if you do want to go to the luau at Aulani, it does sell out, in this case, months in advance. If you were to go to try to see the luau right now, you can't get tickets till October.
Wow.
So
I guess maybe for like distancing, I don't know what it was like before, but there really were not very many tables. So I can see definitely how it would sell out very quickly. We booked it. I mean, right when they announced it was coming back and you were able to book it, we jumped right on and booked. So I can
our
see how
secret hope is that the rules at Hawaii will expand and then Disney will throw some reservations in there, because
nice.
I think right now it's like 75% is the rule in Hawaii for seating, and they're increasing sort of exponentially. So maybe we will get to go, but we're not holding out on it because it has been sold out for months. But I'm really glad you all got to do it, and it sounds like a lot of fun.
It was fun. It was expensive, but it was fun.
Expensive.
And I think maybe the hot tip for that would be if you get one of the rooms that overlooks the luau, you can see it for free every night, and you just don't get the food. So
I mean, maybe that's what I should try to do.
Maybe so. That's what my husband said he wants to do next time. He's like, we should just get the luau view next time. And the characters meet out there too during the day. So you could just kind of like pop out and see which characters are there. Or some days, I should say. They weren't always out there on that lawn, but some days you see the characters out there too. So.
Okay. Now I'm thinking,
Wheels
is
are
there
turning.
a way to request one of those rooms?
Maybe so. You should check with your travel agent.
I do happen to have a travel agent.
We were lucky and got one of those rooms one time, and it was amazing. We got to watch the luau twice from our balcony in the evening, and the music's incredible. The story's amazing. So we loved it. So let's turn to probably the biggest focus of why you're at Aulani, and that's Waikoloa Valley, which is where the water slides are, the lazy river, the pools, and then just that beautiful beach that looks out over the lagoon. Why don't you talk about that, Christy? How did you and your family enjoy it, the kids, and where did you spend most of your time, up by the pools or down on the beach?
We didn't spend a whole lot of time on the beach. I think we did like maybe one afternoon and one morning, but that's more me because I hate sand everywhere. So I'm not as big of a beach person, but the kids enjoyed it, but we weren't there a whole lot. We spent much more of our time at the pool doing the water slides. I was kind of surprised. My 5-year-old, she thought they were great. I was worried she might be a little scared of them, but she enjoyed the slides. We loved the lazy river. I probably could have stayed in that thing all day long. There's so much around there that you can kind of hop from one thing to the other instead of, getting bored with just a pool or, just a water slide or whatever. So it was really nice. We definitely, I felt like got our fair share of fun pool time over there. And it was nice to be, you're just right up close by your hotel room. So you can just, whenever you get tired of it or you need a break from the sun, you run upstairs for a little while and then you come back down and do it all again.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so much. Did you find a spot that you guys gravitated towards a little bit more as far as finding places or finding chairs?
Finding chairs. I think we usually ended up finding chairs near the Menehune Bridge, which was not ideal. It's a little bit loud over there and there's a lot of water splashing, but
it's busy.
But the kids liked being in that area. So it was fine. I mean, I think some people worry. I see a lot of posts on like Facebook planning groups about getting chairs. And we never had an issue. It might not be the most ideal location. It might not be with an umbrella, but every time we went to the pool, we found a chair somewhere. So they have them kind of like grouped together right now. They have them, I guess, like zip tied in groups of like 2 and 3. So we never had a problem finding somewhere. So we always had a place to put our things and kind of a home base to go back to. And sometimes one of us would bring a book down, and while the other one kind of ran around with the kids, one would sit back and just relax and read a book or whatever. We didn't have any trouble with that, but I think it does get a little bit crazy early in the morning. They say, if you're down there before 8 o'clock when they open, you have to be on your chair. You can't just go leave your stuff and hope you'll come back and have that chair, once the pool's open. So it's definitely, it can be a little scary down there, a little bit like vulture-ish, people trying to get chairs, but we didn't have any trouble.
So we're not really layout and chair people. I bring a book on every single Disney cruise, and I get maybe 10 pages of reading done on any book that I bring on a Disney cruise. And I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like before I go on a vacation, I envision myself laying in a chair reading a book, and I will literally like mark out a whole afternoon of every cruise to do that. And next thing you know, I'm over at the ice cream thing, and then I'm up at Satellite Falls, and I'm not doing anything related to reading at all. So
same. That's normally me. I mean, okay. I will admit that is normally me. And I think that was why it was so nice to break it up, because we are normally get on vacation and we go, especially if we're going to a place like Hawaii, where it's like, we may never be back. We might not be back for a long time. So we want to do a lot of things. I don't think I could have gone and just spent like a week at Aulani and just sat by the pool in normal circumstances. I think the way that we did it was perfect for us, because we got to do a lot of things, but then it almost kind of forced us to relax, because then it was like, well, we've done all the things we wanted to do. So now we can just hang out. But when I feel like there's other things I want to be doing, I'm just going to sit here and read my book. I can't do that. So it kind of forced us to slow down a little bit, which was a nice change of pace for us.
Right. And that's why I think, like, I know there are people, it happens on the cruise too, where there are people who are like 7 a.m. I'm up getting a chair right in front of the pool. And I do imagine a lot of times that's parents who want to be close to their kids who are going to be swimming in the kids' soup, but they plan to just sit in the chair and whatever. Right. But Disney Cruise Line has that same rule, right? You can't just leave your stuff at a chair and go leave. In theory, I know you see a lot of people do that, but at Aulani, I'm assuming, especially right now when the resort is essentially booked at capacity, that it's really crowded down in that area. And the likelihood of you being able to get a place to camp out all day and also enjoy the swimming and all the other things they offer is probably not very easy to do.
We found we had really good luck if we would maybe go kind of like early in the morning. We would get a chair, go for a few hours. And then, like I said, we would pack up and go back up to the room for lunch. And so when we came back around like 2:30, 3 o'clock, that's when a lot of the families with like little kids who had been there since 8 o'clock in the morning were packing up their stuff and leaving for the day. So we could kind of find chairs that way. Yep, exactly. We had a lot of those. Oh, are you getting ready to leave? We'll take that chair. So that was a really good time to be able to find chairs, is when it gets to that like 3, 4 o'clock, especially people are starting to leave because they've been there since, 8 o'clock in the morning. So it worked out really well for us doing it that way. One thing that was really nice too is that it's really close to where the lawn is, where the characters would meet. So some days, like, we would there's a little number you can call to find out what characters are going to be out at what time. And so we'd be out at the pool and I'd have my little list and I'd say, oh, Stitch is going to be there in 15 minutes. And so we would just walk over, get our pictures taken, and then go back to the pool. So yeah, it was really, everything was pretty close together. It was a lot of fun to get to do that kind of stuff.
That's amazing. And the lagoon that they are on in Ko Olina, technically Disney doesn't own that lagoon. So it's public in the sense that there's a law in Hawaii, Steve, that's like to the highest reaches of the highest tide is public land. So there's no such thing as a private beach, even if your house were right on the beach. It's not your beach. So if you ever see a beach, even if it looks like it's in a private neighborhood, you can actually be there. And so those lagoons are not just Disney folks. So were they really crowded, or did you ever swim in them? What was that like?
I did not find that it was crowded. It is a public beach, but the chairs are not public. So I don't know that many people would maybe want to go. It didn't seem like many people would want to go out there and just like sit on the sand for the day, because you would have to be an Alani guest to use their chairs. And I think like the Four Seasons has their own chairs in that same little area. So it never was crowded. It was always easy to find a spot. The kids had plenty of space to play with their sand toys, and you can rent boogie boards and stuff like that. So my son did that a couple of times, and definitely not as crowded as Waikiki Beach for sure.
I have a dream of doing stand-up paddleboarding for the first time in Hawaii, because I've never done it. I'm also not, I don't think I have a center of gravity. I think it's constantly shifting. So I don't know that I'd actually be good at that. But the lagoons in Ko Olina are flat, right? They're just like really calm water. So if I were going to paddleboard,
that's where I
feel like that's where I should do it. And I know they have rentals there. So that's one activity we're thinking of doing in Alani. It sounds like the rentals were pretty easy to get if people wanted them, it looked like.
I think there was one day we had trouble because we went kind of late in the day. So I think maybe they were about to close. So we ended up not getting a boogie board that day. But otherwise, like any time during the day, I think they closed at like 4:30 or 5 maybe. So any other time there was no problem. And that would definitely be the best place to do it, because it's kind of they have, I guess, like rock walls that kind of block a lot of the big waves. So it's very gentle water in there. So I felt comfortable with the kids kind of just going out and playing. Not so much like Waikiki. They look like they could get knocked over by, a big wave. So I felt a little bit more comfortable with them out there playing in the water and not having to be right on top of them.
Did you or the kids ever snorkel in the like aquarium that they have there?
We didn't. We kept talking about doing it, and it just was one of those things that we just never ended up kind of getting around to, because we were always doing something else. But it looked really nice, and you can see there's like an area where you can go under and look like at the aquarium, so you can see the fish and stuff through the glass without being in the pool. But no, we didn't end up doing that. My son, I thought he might ask about it a little more, but he really didn't. So he was entertained enough by everything else they had.
Steve, have you or your family ever done that?
I actually have never done it. My kids have. Let's just say that the water is very cold, so you're kind of limited. Most people kind of, I don't want to say complain about it, but they mentioned that it's cold, so it kind of limits how much time you want to spend in there. But if you're going to be there for multiple days, you can buy a whole time pass while you're there, and that's the most economical thing to do if you think you're going to want to do it several times versus just one day.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the problem too. Is it's like, as we were there more days, it's like, well, we haven't bought the pass yet, so it probably wouldn't be worth it, to spend the money on it now that we're only going to be here for maybe like 2 more days or whatever. So if you don't kind of jump on it right at the beginning, it just kind of, it loses its value, I guess, the less days you have left.
That makes sense. Speaking of snorkeling, did you or your family snorkel anywhere?
We didn't. We kind of snort. We did a shark cage dive. I forgot to mention that too. We did that on the North Shore. So that we did use our snorkel gear for that, because they like send you out in the cage. They provide snorkels, or you can bring your own. But we actually tried to get into Hanauma Bay to snorkel, which you have to book in advance. And I have not experienced getting a Rise of the Resistance boarding pass, but that is probably the closest thing I could compare it to, because I got on at 7 a.m. and could not get a spot for Hanauma Bay.
When you can only book it 2 days in advance, right?
Correct,
so like your whole trip, you could be trying to walk out that 2 days to get it, but if you don't get it, you don't get it.
And it's only open, I think, maybe like 4 or 5 days a week. Like it might be like closed on like Sundays and Mondays or something, or Mondays and Tuesdays.
Yeah, it's closed. It's closed 2 days a week, because though it's a preserve. It's a preserve. They're trying to fix the problems that we have done as human beings, because a long time ago you could feed the fish there. And what that caused is the bolder fish would get the food and the other fish would end up dying off or leaving. And so then you had less variety of fish. And then the sunscreen that people were wearing was killing the reef and all this stuff. And so they're trying to fix that. And so you can only swim in it 5 days a week, and they cap it off at 1,000 people a day. So it's very hard to get into.
It was very hard. I mean, I was on right at 7 a.m. I thought, this will be no problem, because I'm like on it, when it's time to book it. And I would pick a time slot, and by the time I put all my information in, it would say there's not enough spots available anymore. And so then I'd go back and try to pick another time slot, And it was the same thing. I don't know if it would maybe go faster if you made an account, so all of your information kind of populated automatically, but me trying to like put my name and, you know, all that kind of stuff in, they were all gone. I think within 2 minutes, all of the spots were booked. And you can go and try to get in as like a walk up, but because that was kind of our like more fluid day, if we weren't sure what we were going to do, I didn't really want to go sit all day and wait and to figure out if we were going to get in or not. So we just didn't even attempt it. So we really didn't go snorkel anywhere. Really, the only time we used the snorkel gear was for the shark cage dive.
But also you hid that little gem of a shark cage dive.
I know, I forgot about that.
So what was that?
It was a little bit, that was a miss for our family. Overall, it was an incredibly cool experience, but I got very motion sick, even though I had taken some Dramamine. So that part was not enjoyable for me. My daughter, she was convinced enough to go in the cage, but then once she got in the cage, she was freaking out. So my husband and I were having to take turns kind of holding her. So it really was not the ideal experience for the three of us. My 10-year-old thought it was the best thing ever. He was flipping around like a little fish, swimming around. Did you see this? Did you see this? They chum the water, so it attract the sharks, and they just kind of swim around the cage, under the cage, and you can, you know, just stick your face under the surface of the water, and you can see them swimming all underneath you. So it was really cool, but being prone to motion sickness, that really affected the experience for me. So I think it would be a lot better for maybe a different family. So not something I would do again, but I'm glad we did it and tried it once. So
let's head back to Aulani. And before we kind of finish up the show, Christy, just a couple of things to throw out there. Chris, yes, there's limited parking at Lagoon One, which is where Aulani is, for public access to it. So not too many people outside of Aulani or the Four Seasons are going to use that. So it really doesn't get too crowded. If you go down to Lagoon 4, there's a marina and there's a huge parking lot down there. So that's where most of the locals go. In that lagoon, you will find to be a lot more crowded and a lot more used compared to the other three. As far as paddleboarding, it looks small out there, but definitely get out there and do it. It's really cool. It's the best place. And even if you don't stand up, being on that board and looking back towards Aulani, bring your phone out there. You can get some great shots. So that's kind of just a neat perspective to have, rather than just being on the beach, being on the water and looking back towards the resort. So as we kind of finish up, Christy, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you guys did at Aulani? And do you have any tips for first-time travelers to Aulani?
Tips for first-time travelers, I would say if you can, split it up some kind of way, you know, even just like how Chris is doing, just doing a couple of days where you just really focus on Aulani and get that full experience. I think that's totally worth it. But on the opposite end, I would say don't go all the way to the Hawaii and only spend your time at Aulani, because there is so much to see and do. There was several other things I had kind of on a list as maybes that we could get out there, and you just don't have time for everything. Even in 12 days, there was some stuff that we thought we might do that we just didn't get to, because there is just so much culture, so many things to experience, so many beautiful beaches. Don't limit yourself. Aulani is kind of like the crown jewel, definitely, of one of those trips, but there is so much out there to do for families, for just, you know, couples, whatever. Look around, you know, and find some cool stuff to do on the island.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to do it, like how you guys did it too. You know, you spent the busy time while you're down in Waikiki, going to so many different places, and then you could just really enjoy your time at Aulani and just kind of slow down. And I think we do it the same way too. You know, busy first, slow down second, and then
Correct.
You know, just enjoy that 8-hour plane ride back to Louisiana. Or something.
Yeah. It was kind of cool though to split it up, because you know people always say you need a vacation from your vacation, and that was almost like what we did. Like we had a really busy 6 days, and then we got a vacation from our vacation. So that was really nice.
That's why you always do the parks first when you go on a Disney cruise.
On the cruise. Yeah. But yeah, then we had to settle in for that long travel back. But, you know, it was worth it. It was worth the long travel just to get there and experience that.
Well, Chris, you're going to be heading there in 3 weeks. Any final questions that you have of Christy before you guys head out there on your experience?
I guess my like sort of big concern has just been, I know Aulani's really, really at capacity right now. Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be so crowded that we just don't feel like we get to relax and do anything? And I think I'm getting the sense from you that it didn't feel like so crowded that you couldn't relax, but I'm looking for reassurance.
It certainly did not. No, I mean, it was definitely coming from a time when people weren't going anywhere and not doing anything, to this environment where there were a lot of people. there is plenty of space. That is one thing that Aulani really did very well, is that there is plenty of space to enjoy. You just definitely don't feel like you're on top of each other. So it absolutely was great. We didn't wait very long for the water slides. There's always the lazy river. I mean, you just hop in there and take a few spins around and relax. So definitely not. No, I think you'll be fine. And I don't know that they're even booking all of the rooms still. I think it may still be even a little bit limited. So you will be fine. And you'll be at Aulani. You'll be in Hawaii. So,
Well, great. I'm excited. I can't wait. And I'm so glad that I got to sort of have you here to pick your brain a little bit. Awesome. and imagine what a trip could be like, even as we enter this sort of like post-vaccination time.
Yeah.
And we don't even have to worry about the stress that you did. So I don't know if you saw that the governor of Hawaii, now you just have to have a vaccination card. You don't have to get tested to enter the state, which was a little stressful for us, to be honest. I mean, we're vaccinated, so we weren't worried about that, but we were worried, like, what if we test positive and then we have to cancel our trip? And it sounds like you were a little bit nervous about that too, of like, what's going to happen if we test positive on our way into Hawaii?
Yeah, we were hoping that change would have come about before our trip, but it didn't. But I'm glad it does for you, because that is definitely an added level of stress before your trip, and once you get past that, and thankfully everybody tested negative, can kind of relax and then get really excited. But it definitely did have an effect of a lot more anxiety leading up to the trip. So that is good that we're, making strides in the right direction to enjoy your vacation and not stress beforehand.
Well, I am so grateful to have you as a guide, since our vacations are so similar, just mine's a little bit shorter. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your experience.
Oh, absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
And before we finish up, we always ask this, thank you so much, Christy, for coming on and sharing your experiences, just like Chris said. And thank you for your work in the healthcare industry too, for everything that's going on. We all appreciate that. What's next for you and your family as we start, hopefully cruising is coming back, and while Disney World is wide open now, Disneyland's open, Chris has gone there, he's fought the spider bots. What's next for you guys?
So we have a little trip to Universal coming up in a few weeks, just before the kids head back to school. And then we are scheduled for Mardi Gras week for our next Disney cruise. So hopefully that goes. If for some reason it doesn't, I have a feeling we wouldn't be able to stay away from the parks too much longer. So that might turn into a Disney World trip. But that's what we have on the horizon for now. So we shall see.
Well, all the best to you and your family. Hopefully you're on that cruise on the beautiful Disney. Is it the Wonder, or are you guys going down to Port Canaveral?
We are Port Canaveral. We're on the Fantasy.
Port Canaveral. Okay, well, you guys will be in Port Canaveral, and we'll be in your hometown, Louisiana, during Mardi Gras. Watch why we booked it during Mardi Gras, I don't know, but it's going to be fun.
It'll be fun. You'll have a great time.
Well, you guys have a wonderful rest of your summer. Enjoy Universal. And when you get back from that Disney cruise, we'd love to have you come back on and share your experiences.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right. All the best, Christy. Thanks.
All right,
and we'll talk to you soon.
All righty.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Christy for coming on once again and sharing her and her family's experiences as they traveled to the beautiful island of Oahu, spent some time in Waikiki, traveling all around the island itself, and then finishing up at Aulani. Just a magic resort place. Unfortunately, it's just like Disney Cruise Line in so many ways as far as the activities around the resort. And then generally when Auntie's Beach House is open, it's a great place for the younger kids to spend some time, so you can have a little adult time alone, whether you're going to one of the restaurants, spending time in the bars, or out at the beach and the pools itself. Unfortunately, we didn't talk about it, but Auntie's isn't open right now, but hopefully it will be soon. And look for another Aulani trip report here in a couple weeks when Chris and Seth get back. We'll hear about all their experiences as they travel over to Waikiki and Aulani as well. We hope this helps you and your family plan your next day when you come over to the islands. If you're enjoying this podcast, we sure would appreciate it if you'd pass it on to others who you think might enjoy it as well. It helps us get the word out about our show and the Disney cruising, Disney travel, and general travel podcasts as well. Well, with the Disney Magic sailing over the UK and the Disney Dream set to set sail August 9th and on into the 13th is the next sailing as well. If you and your family are traveling on board one of the Disney ships soon and would like to come on and share your experiences to help others who listen to our podcast, travel a little smarter, we sure would appreciate it. You can reach out to me, Steve, at DCLpodcast.com, and we'll get you set up to come on and talk about your experiences with Disney Cruise Line. Of course, we always love talking about Aulani and also Adventures by Disney as well. And we always touch on a little bit of Run Disney as well. Looking forward to a marathon weekend and hopefully meeting some of you guys down there when we get back there in January. Well, between now and our next show, if you and your family are heading out on a vacation as the summer ends up and winds up before school starts, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, we wish you to be well, travel safe out there, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.